Despite the amount of ooky, spooky, horror-related stuff we've discussed on this show, it will probably come as no surprise to anyone when I say that I also have a bit of a sweet tooth. I mean, in so much as I have any teeth at all. I love pleasant, cute, magic-y stuff. I can't help it. Sure, Poe and Lovecraft and Ito are great, but give me magic carpets, fairy hollows, friendly dragons, Coraline, Discworld, anything at all by Hayao Miyazaki, and I'll be just as happy, if not even more so. I don't think I'm alone in that. Every time we do a video on the lighter side of fantasy, you all seem to enjoy it just as much, but the trouble is convincing you to click on it, because these pleasant subjects sort of seem to solve themselves, don't they? The mysteries they present don't seem as urgent as a video about a colossus made of human bodies or a call to make children's fiction darker. And that makes me sad, because although they aren't as inherently challenging, these pleasanter stories do have more to offer than they first seem to. It's easy to write them off as children's fiction or easy escapism, but I don't see it that way. I never have. And I think, if you look, you can see it too. Give me a chance. I want to show you the surprising power of whimsy. On the subject of whimsy, I want to share one really positive thing we were able to do this holiday season. Thanks to our sponsor GiveWell, we were not only able to donate $100 to protect the lives of children in the neediest communities, we were able to double that amount. And you can do it too. GiveWell is offering fans of Tale Foundry a chance to make the world a better place without the massive burden of research, because they do it all for you to make sure your money is making the biggest possible impact, but they'll also match what you give. Be sure to check the description for more details, because this is one of the coolest things we have ever been able to sponsor on the show. More on this later. I think we all have a sense of what whimsy is, but it's honestly a bit harder to pin down than you might expect. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as a fanciful or fantastic device, object, or creation, especially in writing or art. A fanciful or fantastic device? Okay, so a talking animal companion is whimsical, and I guess a strange soapstone statuette depicting an eldritch abomination from before the time of man is too? That doesn't really sit well with me. In his strange, real-time-ish memoir, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, author Donald Miller offers an explanation that I find far more useful. He relates a conversation in which someone tells him that people shouldn't be afraid to embrace whimsy. When he asked what the man meant by whimsy, the man told him, "It's that nagging idea that life could be magical, it could be special, if we were only willing to take a few risks." I really like this application of the term. It may not be the defining interpretation, but this gives whimsy a role apart from magic and fantasy. With this understanding, whimsy becomes that which makes life feel magical. It becomes a suggestion, and that's a pretty broad role to play. It can just be literal magic, as in most fantasy, but it can also be simpler things, little oddities that ignite a sense of wonder and joy in the imagination. So, perhaps not quite the creepy statuette that quietly suggests a cosmos that is, best case, entirely indifferent to your pitiful existence. It's a sort of similar feeling. It does make a suggestion, but it doesn't suggest that the world is magical so much as the world is false and dangerous. Whimsy can be dark, but I think it's also important that it has an element of aspiration to it, that we're drawn toward this suggestion of magic, rather than revolted by it or afraid of it or morbidly curious. Mostly you're going to find this in media considered to be for children. Classic fairy tales, beast tales, traveler's tales, modern young adult novels and films, kids' books and shows. For kids, it makes a lot of sense. A whimsical spectacle can make a great tool for engagement, a shiny thing to chase into the experience. It can help facilitate participation and immersion, and even better, it can help cultivate divergent thinking, which is what some consider to be the basis of creativity itself. In his essay on fairy stories, Tolkien offered some categories for children's stories, each of them full of whimsy. Fairy tales are the most obvious of them. The Grimm brothers collected regional stories of Cinderella's magical glass slipper and Rumpelstiltskin, the imp who can spin straw into gold. Andrew Lang went further afield and found things like Aladdin's magical lamp, or a wind strong enough to bear a person across the sky in east of the sun, west of the moon. Hans Christian Andersen came up with his own whimsies, little mermaids and tiny children sprouting from barleycorn. In Beast Tales, the source of whimsy is also quite clear. Animals don't usually act very much like humans. How often in your childhood did you try to talk to the creatures around you, wishing they would talk back? Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame is full of such whimsies. Mole and Rat spending their days lounging along the river or meeting with their friend Toad, who likes to drive motor cars. To me, this is a really familiar, comfortable sort of whimsy. It's probably pretty embedded into your consciousness by now. I mean, I'm sure most of you can tell the story of the hare and the tortoise by heart, even though it's been how long since you revisited Aesop's fables? Traveler's tales offer a different form of whimsy. Fantastical places with different rules, customs, and inhabitants. What may seem quite normal to one group can be quite alien and quite magical to another. Gulliver's Travels is the quintessential traveler's tale, taking the narrator on voyages to places like Lilliput, an island nation of people 6 inches tall, Brobdingnag, an island nation of giants, and Hoyhumhum, a land of wise horses who tame the wild. And we all know Alice in Wonderland, with its hookah-smoking caterpillars, flamingo mallet croquet, and outlandishly silly wordplay. It's bursting at the seams with whimsy. These stories beg to be explored for the magic that they promise, but whimsy is more than just a shiny object. It's not just for tricking kids into engaging. It's everywhere. Take these very grown-up films, for instance. Pan's Labyrinth, a very adult fairy tale, is spilling over with dark whimsy. The killing of a sacred deer, one of the most grueling, painful meditations on human impotence you're likely to come across, has a twinkling of whimsy that makes it shine like a needle in the dark. And that's not even getting into adult animation. Just watch the movie Angel's Egg. I really need not say any more than that. In the same essay, without ever using the term whimsy, Tolkien also manages to describe one of its key abiding elements. He says that there is a primal desire at the heart of fairy, the realization independent of the conceiving mind, of imagined wonder, not just the suggestion of magic, but also the deep gravitational pull toward it, even in, perhaps especially in, dark places. And I think we can see that in all of these stories. But it's not enough to tell you where to find whimsy. I want to show you whimsy in action. And for this, I look to one of my favorite books, Howl's Moving Castle, by the late Diana Wynne Jones. I love this book for a lot of reasons, but largely because its brand of whimsy is so very enchanting, so undeniably alluring. I know, it's also been adapted into a Studio Ghibli film that everyone probably knows way better than the book at this point. But please, even if you've seen the movie already, go read the book. Not just because we're about to share a bunch of mild spoilers, but also because it's a very different experience in text, and I really want everyone to have it. From the very first chapters of this story, you know the land of Ingary and the path of the story are going to be full of magic. That suggestion is there, and it's very hard to reject once you get going. The protagonist is a young girl, cursed with old age, who sets off to find her own fortune. The antagonist is the Witch of the Wastes, jealous and mighty, bestowing curses liberally on any who cross her. We quickly find the eponymous castle itself, striking in its size and strangeness, the ways in which it breaks the laws of geometry and physics. There is, of course, the wizard, Howl, owner of the castle, every bit the heartbreaker and Picaro, but with wisdom and magic to boot. There is the fire demon, Calcifer, with all his vast powers, bound in the form of a small flame within the hearth, and made to power the castle and its strange magics. This is all very fabulous, and it all certainly works on the reader in the ways we've discussed so far, but more striking than any of those, there is a door inside the castle, which leads to many places. The fishing town of Porthaven by the sea, the royal capital city of Kingsbury, the rolling countryside over which the castle roams. It even leads to Earth? Our world? That's right. I wanted to bring this particular piece of the magic up because I think it's some of the most instructive usage of whimsy I may have ever seen. Big spoiler here, so if you haven't read the book, pause now or skip this part. The wizard Howl isn't really from the magical world of Ingery. He's from here, this world, the one outside the book, Wales specifically. The door isn't just a portal from place to place within the story, it's a portal from a land with magic to a land without. And to me, whether the author realized it or not, this can act as a pretty impressive metaphor for the value of whimsy. Near the beginning of the book, the jealous Witch of the Wastes curses Sophie with old age. We also learn that before the story ever started, she cursed the wizard Howl too. The curse itself is essentially a list of impossible tasks which, if fulfilled, will allow her to take possession of Howl's heart. It reads thus: "Go and catch a falling star, get with the child a mandrake root, tell me where all past years are, or who cleft the devil's foot. Teach me to hear the mermaids singing, or to keep off envy's stinging, and find what wind serves to advance an honest mind. If thou beest born to strange sights, things invisible to see, ride 10,000 days and nights, till age snow-white hairs on thee. Thou, when thou return'st, wilt tell me all strange wonders that befell thee, and swear nowhere lives a woman true and fair." The more well-read among you may recognize this already. In the story, it is a curse. In reality, it is an excerpt from the poem Go and Catch a Falling Star by John Donne. It's a real piece. You can go and read it for yourself. It's written as a list of tasks which cannot be accomplished, culminating in the revelation that finding a woman true and fair is the least likely thing of all. I'm not going to comment on that perspective, but it plays into the story very well, as this is ultimately the tale of a man who's only ever spurned love, Howl, finding companionship in the most unlikely of places. And it feels as though it makes sense because, again, the story doesn't take place in our world. It takes place in Ingery, a land of magic where all things seem possible, a place where girls can be cursed with old age, where there are jealous witches to be afraid of, where castles roam the hills, where roguish wizards gallivant about, breaking hearts and spinning legends, a place where one might, in fact, catch a falling star and keep it in their hearth as a tiny, grumpy fire demon forevermore. Just as the door presents the possibility of wonder and fuels Howl's conflict, the suggestion of magic within the story pulls us like a gravitational force out of the land of reason and into the land of wonder. Once you start it, Howl's Moving Castle is a story which begs to be read. And that, I think, is the great power of whimsy. It is a suggestion that a creative mind cannot help but accept, a question we cannot help but seek answers to. No, not every story, not even every piece of fantasy, needs to feel whimsical, but I think it's a shame for us to see whimsy as a childish thing, a thing to shy away from in the pursuit to write more mature fiction. Inspires you to wonder, pulls you toward it, is nothing to turn from, especially not in dark places. In his essay on 3 Ways of Writing for Children, C.S. Lewis wrote, "When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret. Would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. Let us not snuff out the light for darkness' sake. Darkness will abide. These glimmers are precious." Thankfully, fiction is not the only place where you can stand to kindle some precious light in this often very difficult existence. It can be hard. You look at the scale of the problems facing the world and you think, what can I even do? You get nihilistic and just accept how difficult things are. But one of humanity's great strengths lies in its sheer numbers. There are so many of you that any tiny, ineffectual effort when magnified by thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people repeating it, it can truly change the world. And hey, if there were ever a time of year to try, I think this would be it. The season of giving. Probably the single easiest thing any one person can do to change the world is to donate a little of the excess they have to someone who needs it far more. It's a nice idea, and we're all aware of it, but it's also a little daunting. How can you feel confident that your donations are really making a big impact? You could do weeks of research to find charities, figure out what they do, how effective they are, and how the charity you choose might use additional money. Or you could just visit givewell.org. There you'll find free research and recommendations about the charities that can save or improve lives the most per dollar. GiveWell spends over 30,000 hours each year researching charitable organizations and only directs funding to a few of the highest impact, evidence-backed opportunities they've found. Over 100,000 donors like you have used GiveWell to donate more than $1 billion. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. And the best part of all? Using GiveWell's research is free. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. They publish all their research and recommendations on their site for free, no sign-up or anything else required. They allocate your donation to the charity or fund you choose without taking a cut, and you even get to write it off as a tax deduction. This season we wanted to give a little to the people who needed it most, but that's sort of hard to figure out. So, given GiveWell's track record and all their available research, we were able to simply put a little money toward their top charities fund, their all grants fund, and their unrestricted fund, which will help make sure that the $100 that we are donating will get used in the best way possible to make the largest possible impact. If you've never donated to GiveWell's recommended charities before, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year, or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org, click Donate, and when asked, how did you first hear about GiveWell, choose YouTube and write Tale Foundry in the box. That way they know you're coming from our channel, and they know to match your donation all the way up to $100. A huge thanks to GiveWell for this opportunity to share something really positive with all of you. This is by far the easiest way to remove the research burden of helping to change the world. You can finally give a little bit in an easy, informed way. I hope you'll join in. Anyway, that's all for this one. Keep your eyes open, watch for the glimmers wherever they occur, and most of all, keep making stuff up. I'll see you next time. Bye!